Whatsgood and Shalam, everybody. It's your boy B-Shack, Incoming Kingdom, and I'm here to share with you guys my personal journey on tracing myself back to what tribe I come from. So I'm going to take you through how I first came to this information by simply just deciding one day to research my last name. I was just looking for some information on my family history. My dad is a pretty big historian, as well as another cousin in my family who know a lot about our family up until like the 1800s, but I wanted to take it further. What about before, slavery? What about before America? And so that's why I went on this journey from researching my last name and coming to find out where that came from and what tribe heralded that name, as well as DNA testing, and then even going to Africa to visit that tribe, further finding out who that tribe says that they descend from. So I'm gonna take you on this journey. I'm giving away a lot of personal information, but to be honest, I don't care. I think this is really important for more of us to see, so we actually have this interest in ourselves, because when you learn about the past, it gives a lot of context and information on what's going on today in your life, why you are the way you are, why is your family the way it is, where could y'all possibly be going. So let's get into it. So one day I decided, you know what, let me just look up what my last name means, as my family pronounces it, Meshach. It's always been a weirder name. People usually be like, you mean like Shadrach, Meshach, and a Billy Goat? Well, let's find out the irony about that, right? I go to names.org. Meshach says the origin is Hebrew. That was really interesting to me. And then I see the user submitted origins. Most of them say Hebrew. And then you have Nigerian and seldom English. A further breakdown shows you find it in high frequency in Ghana, Nigeria, South Africa, India, and in Kenya. Now, as far as that spelling, there was a little bit of limited information, so I decided to look up the closest name spelling, and that was Meshach. Again, Hebrew. And then you see higher frequency of Kenya, Nigeria, Tanzania, South Africa, Ghana, just all these other African countries. And then when you zoom in here, you see where we have from Kenya, Kikuyu, one who loves peace and protector. Kenya, one that trusts in God and victor. Kenya, one like God. From Italy, humble, slow to anger, peace, and they might be Kenyan. Ghana, is of Kana origin, moon god, which you find the name of Khan in the Bible. Kenya, Meshach, curing peaceful maker. Kenya, Lua, Kikuyu origin. So you see this highest frequency of Kenyan claimed definitions and names, and then some other African ones as well. Now here where pieces really start coming together. When you compare where the Meshachs were in Africa and where the Meshachs were in Africa, they're in the exact same places. West, East, and South Africa. But you just see Meshachs have a higher frequency and a little bit more spread out. But when you get to the United States, they're in different areas. What does this mean? That these two were probably the same people, probably the same spelling at one point, but there was some type of spelling change, a tribe break off, maybe a disagreement. And the crazy thing that this just happened within maybe the last 50 to 70 years in my family, where now you have MAEs, MAYs, and MASHACK. Centuries later, they may not know that they're family. It's mad wild. So, Pete, I did 23andMe DNA tests. I already know about Jewish BlackRock buying up all this DNA information. I know I'm probably cloned. I know gain-of-function research using our DNA to target specific people with viruses. I decided the information was worth it anyway, so don't come for me. But I did 23andMe because they give you something called a haplogroup, a genetic marker that's passed from father to father that you can trace back to a specific ancestor. Other websites like Ancestry or African Ancestry don't give you that information. But most of us, when we do ours, it's going to say mostly West Africa, Ghana, Nigeria, Igbo people, Bantu people. Most of us have it in that if you know the history of the slave trade. But I decided to download the raw data and upload across multiple DNA sites to get more accurate information. And as you can see, GEDmatch shows high concentration of Pygmy. You see West African. You see Congo peoples. You see all this information about my breakdown. Now, on top of this, DNA travel pattern. paternal haplogroup, it shows it comes down out of the Middle East or Israel into Africa. On maternal mom's side, the same thing. This also follows what we know as the Bantu migration. And the Kikuyu peoples landed here, Igbos here, where the Bantu proceeded out of them. And then, well, we'll get back to that, the Israelite migration into Africa. And just to add a note here, Semitic is North African to East Africa. If you're from North Africa to East Africa, you're Semitic. Can't be anti-Semitic or Shemitic. Now, before I hit you with the punchline, you can go on this document here, the scientific research document on creation.com, which gets into the genetic history of the Israelite nation. And it talks about how one of the main genetic markers that belongs to the Israelites is E1B1A. It's a little small, but we're going to try. The multiplicity of distinct ancestral paternal lineages is due to the extensive mixing between the Jews and the non-Jews of their history, plus the possibility of the founder effects at different places in Jewish history. In other words, it's possible that non-Jewish Y chromosome is found in a higher than expected frequencies in specific Jewish population. As you can see, E1B1A, and in some of these others. Among the Sephardic Jews, chromosomes from a diverse background can be found. The majority come from the haplogroup J, associated with the Middle Eastern peoples, but others are from E1B1A and E1B1B, common in Africa and other places. Now, I honestly don't agree. They only have to say G because they have to recognize the Ish people, which, I don't believe that they're real, but as you can see, it's there. E1. Now, here's where it gets deep. According to 23andMe, my paternal haplogroup is EM4254. Now, they really just give you a super complicated one because they don't really want you to know who you are. But what I did is went to isogg.org, which is a DNA site that helps you find your specific haplogroup with whatever DNA information you have. And when you come down in this area, haplogroup E1B1A. And then underneath, mine falls M5254. And so that would make me E1B1A. And where does it run through? Benin, Cote, Sierra Leone, Gabon, Kenya, Ethiopia, Cameroon, Africa, Sudanese, and Qatar. And then you see down here more E1B1A, M4254, and again E1B1A, M4254. And so that would literally make me a bloodline Israelite or having a high concentration of Israelite DNA, according to these studies. And there's way more research about E1B1A on there, but if I'm going to be completely honest, you will find a lot of contradictory research for the propaganda of making us believe that them people over there is them. Peep this about E, which my DNA falls under. It would appear to have risen in the northern hemisphere of Africa based on the concentration and variety of E subclades in that area today. That's where Israel is. E1B1 is by far the lineage of the greatest geographical distribution. It has two major sublineages, E1B1A and the E1B1B Esau. Fam, that fulfills the prophecy of Abraham having descendants like the stars of the sky and sands of the sea. And most of the transatlantic slave trade Negroes have the haplogroup E1B1A. This is facts. Think of the other information I've shared. So naturally, I went to Kenya and visited the Kikuyu people of Kenya. There was other information and family records that I found that helped link to the Kikuyu people. But you can see with all this information, I found this out. And I literally went 2 months later in the middle of the pandemic in 2021. Juanita here, I met her. We got cool before I even, came, and she showed me around Kenya. And it was the greatest experience I ever had in my life. And even just seeing how they live, the language and stuff, it was confirmation that, wow, these are people of the book. They've even actually written books about this. Kikuyu Mystery Revealed. Descendants of Asher, a lost tribe of Israel. Wow. Also in the book, Facing Mount Kenya by Jomo Kenyatta, the very first president of Kenya, he mentions the Watu Wemungi, the Kikuyu that basically remember that they are the chosen people of God, and that they are descendants of the tribes of Israel. You still know it. Kikuyu literally means sycamore fig tree. There's also the Book of Nations, descendants of Jimna Asher, a lost tribe of Israel, another testament of Jesus Christ. You have an honorable mention about the Kikuyu people in the glossary. An African tribe in the region of Kenya also claims descendancy from the tribe of Asher. Ashua Asher, who Ashua is one of the sons. The Christian church, and you kind of get this European washed view of who the people in the Bible are. Now you come across information that makes you see yourself in the Bible, that makes you see, oh, these verses do say that they are black, reddish brown, gold, like the sun. Perspective changer for sure. I even came to find out that, wow, this last name is literally the root word for Mashiach or Christ, anointed oil smear paint. And it's funny enough, my dad used to always grow up saying, I just feel like there's an anointing on his family, which is very humbling, to be honest. Now it's like a weight on your shoulders. You can literally just Google Mashiach comes from Africa, Bantu-speaking people, meaning strength, resilience, cultural heritage. And then it's even linked to the word Mashaka, which is Swahili language, which is the broadest language spoken in East Africa, which the Kikuyu also speak as well, which means trouble, or meaning someone who carries a cultural significance historically linking to the name of individuals who are disruptors or catalysts for change, challenging oppressive systems, and advocating for justice. And then you can compare Mashaka to Mashiach, which is translated Messiah, which means the anointed one, or a future king of the Davidic line who would be anointed, rule, king, or Messiah, Messianic age. Literally, they have similar meanings. So this is all this information I had accumulated, which helped me trace my family back to our tribe. It's so dope because even as we went there again with my podcast in 2023, other people would tell me, I look like my people, I look like my tribe. You have other sister and brother tribes there that look at them as sister and brother, who I also honestly think, could be Hebrews as well. But so this is my personal journey on finding out that my family goes back to Kikuyu people. The Kikuyu people are descendants of the tribe of Asher, and that would make us descendants of those people. Of course, none of this matters unless we actually believe in the Messiah, Yashar'al HaMashiach. But it's great information to know, and it helps you honestly read the Bible with a completely different perspective. That this is Black history. Deuces.